Today I'm going to change the oil on this 2008 Toyota Tacoma. As you can see, it's a little bit lifted off the ground, so I'm not going to have to jack it up and put it on jack stands, but I am going to have to take off this oil filter, and I don't think I can take it off by hand, so I'm going to have to get a tool to take this off. So I got this generic one. It's kind of cool because it's very flexible for getting into tight spots, and then like this one here. So the way this one works is you just wrap it up around the the oil filter until it gets tight, and then you put your wrench in on the end here, and you can use a 3/4 inch ratchet drive to loosen that up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. They make a bunch of different kinds of oil filter wrenches. I don't really consider it a wrench, it's just a tool to take off the oil filter. There's probably like 10 different styles. You can buy a fancy expensive one just for your truck, just for your oil filter, and if you're going to change your oil filter all the time. If you're going to do it yourself for the life of the truck, then it's worth it to invest in one of these. I have several different kinds of cars, so so I just have this general multi-purpose, multi-use one. Alright, so I'm showing you what I'm doing here. I don't actually have a so you need a 3/4 inch drive, and I don't have an extension, 3/4 inch extension, so I'm using an adapter here, and I have an extension on my 1/2 inch drive ratchet. And you can see what's going on here. It's just basically, that's it. It's not a lot of effort. Once you get it loose, you just take it off with your hand. But before you do that, you're going to want to put the cup underneath this drain hole. There's a plug on there right now, so you got to take the cap off underneath, and I'm going to go ahead and do that with my both hands. But there's a cap there underneath this. You're not going to be able to see it. You're just going to have to fill it. It's a little cap. It's like about this big, and it just caps up right underneath there. And so that's what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to put the cup there. Then I'll loosen the filter, and the oil will spill out into this spill guard here, and then take the filter off and flip it upside down. You might want to have your oil pan ready. You can just put it in your oil pan too. Okay, so I got the cap off. A little tiny bit of oil in there. It's a little difficult to get this thing off. It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard rubber. That's not soft. And so I actually had to use some pliers to pull it off. So I just grabbed the pliers and got underneath there to pull it off. But it's a little bit tricky because it's hard to get to, and you just got to grab it with some pliers. You could also try using a screwdriver to wedge it in there and just kind of pry it off. Something I noticed that I didn't see earlier is that I didn't have this on my battery post covering that up, and when you're working in this area with wrenches and stuff, you could touch this and cause a spark. So make sure you got this, and if you're missing this, then cover it with something and go and buy yourself a battery post cover for your positive. Okay, so I got that off. Now you see you got a cup down there. I'm going to put that cup underneath this hole that I just opened up, the drain hole, and take off the filter. Alright, so I'm catching the oil that's spilling out right now, and I was able to get the filter off and flip it over quick enough so that the oil that spilled out only spilled out so much to not spill over this splash guard, this drain guard, and now I'm just holding the oil. It's dripping down into my cup there, and so I got to stand here for a little bit. If you got something that'll balance in there, that'll stay stuck in there, you don't have to hold that. Other people will put a hose on the end of this drain plug and let it drain down underneath the truck into a drain pan or something container. I don't have a hose that I can connect it to, so I'm just using this cup. You can use a old oil can, cut in half. You can wedge that in there probably. If you really want to get tricky, you can tape it. Alright, so once this is done, clean it up, put the new filter on. Okay, so something else I forgot to mention is you're going to want to have a rag handy because you're going to be spilling stuff around. The other thing I forgot to mention is, as I said, have your drain pan ready to go, but you should also have something on the floor. I happen to have one of these I picked up at O'Reilly's or AutoZone. So you're going to want to lay that underneath your car too, your truck. Unless you don't care about the driveway. This is my house, so I want to try to take care of the driveway. So this is the Bosch oil filter, the old one. Put that right here. This is a cool little drain pan. You can use whatever you want, but I bought this one. This is a pretty big drain pan, so I'm not going to worry about not hitting it, you know, splashing. It's a little windy today, so when the oil's draining, the wind can blow it and it could get all over the place. So I like this one, and then I pour it into a smaller container later. So here's my other drain pan. This is all the oil that spilled out from the oil filter while I was taking it out. So this is a cool container because I can cap it off and I can take it to the AutoZone or whatever, the parts supply, and they'll recycle the oil for me. Please always recycle your old oil. Alright, so next thing I would say is I spilled some oil on my battery here. Make sure you wipe all that off. I spilled a little here. Wipe off any oil you spilled anywhere as much as you can. I've already cleaned this up with the rag. You want to use a clean rag and just try to clean up this area as best you can with your rag, and get it. Alright, sorry I ran out of space on my camera. Anyways, what I was saying is wipe everything down. I'm going to go ahead and take that cap off once again. I just barely put it on there, and just to get that little oil that drained out into that. And start draining the oil from underneath. Alright fans, I'm using Castrol Edge 5W30 fluid with titanium technology. This is a full synthetic oil. To be honest with you guys, I wouldn't use synthetic oil, because once you use it, you can never go back, and that kind of puts you in a tight situation. Sometimes when you're in maybe in an emergency situation, you're low on oil or something, you got to use synthetic once you switch. So stick with regular. I'm going to put a little bit on the new oil filter. This is a Bosch 3330. I like Bosch brand. You can use another brand. So I'm just going to show you here from the front of the truck what you're looking at once you go underneath. Again, this truck is lifted, so yours might look a little different, but the drain plug is going to be right there. So you have that cross member there, goes from the wheel. You have your A-arm, and you have the cross member. The other wheel's over there, so you get an idea. This is the oil drain plug. I just loosened it up with a 14mm socket with an extension and a small ratchet. it might be a little tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my drain pan underneath here and readjust my mat so I don't get oil everywhere, and I'm gonna start draining it. Alright, so here we go. There's my oil draining. It's pretty black. One of the things about getting your oil changed at a oil change place is they don't let the oil drain long enough, and so you end up with leftover old oil in your car. So this could take a while, longer than, you know, 5 minutes or so. It's probably been draining about 5 minutes. You can see the wind blowing, so that's why I like to use a large drain pan so it can catch it all. And even if you're not doing it in your own driveway, if you're doing it in the street or wherever you're doing it, you should still use a mat underneath, because oil is bad for the environment, as we all know. So we want to try to not spill any as much as possible. So I'm gonna let that drain. I didn't tighten my fuel filter up all the way yet because I want to try to create a suction, hopefully get some of that you know, get all the oil out of there. And so now that it's draining, I went ahead and put a little bit of oil on the filter before I put it on, so it's not dry. So while I'm tightening it, it can slide, and you're gonna get it hand tight, and tighten it as much as possible by hand. My hands are dry, I don't have any grease on my gloves. Oh, and that's the other thing too, get yourself some gloves. And see the wind still blowing the oil. Get yourself some of these rubber gloves. Don't do this without rubber gloves, because you'll get oil on your skin and it'll be hard to get it off, and your hands will smell like oil for a long time. You can also use a creepy crawler to get underneath your truck. Not necessary though, because this truck is kind of high and you're just changing the oil, just taking off one drain plug. I left the drain plug in there. Once that finishes, you can see there's still oil dripping out of there. I'm gonna go ahead and put the drain plug back on, but I'm gonna thoroughly wait for that to drain. So no 5-minute Jiffy Lube here. On the gloves, got these at Harbor Freight, and I'm using the 5 millimeter thickness for industrial use, but this is medium duty. I recommend going with heavy duty, because at least 7 millimeter, because I've already gone through 3 gloves. And on the drain plug, make sure you clean it off before you put it back on. Clean off the threads, clean off the top. You got a washer there, make sure you got that washer before you put it back on. This washer, looks like it's a copper washer. They may make different kinds. They may have a compression washer. Basically, you want to prevent any drainage, which it's not going to drain. As long as you tighten this up, you should be fine. So I don't see my oil dripping. It's about one drip every 5 seconds. So it's almost all gone. It's been about 10 minutes now since I took off the drain plug. Jiffy Lube, they would have took off the drain plug, drained the oil, put it right back on without letting it drip. So that's what I'm doing. Alright, so we are. Went ahead and transferred all the oil from the big drain pan into the portable one with the cap, lid on it. Be careful. This is a cheap drain. This is a cheap drain pan and oil pan. It'll leak out of here, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it straight over to the auto parts store and recycle it. Put a rag underneath here, when you're transferring it in your car. If you got a truck, keep it in the back bed of the truck. Put the old oil filter in here. Make sure you have it up so the hole is facing up, because even though you drained it, there's still oil in there and it'll get in the back of your truck as well. I spilled a little oil on the floor as I was transferring it, so I would move that over to wherever you're going to transfer that, because you're probably going to spill oil. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the new oil in. This is I believe 5.5 quarts of oil. It says calls for 5W30 API SL energy conserving oil for gas engines. Get an oil filter. I'm sorry. Get yourself a funnel to put the oil in so you don't spill oil around. Okay, so apparently this is 4.5 quarts of oil, according to the thing here on the side. So, from what I understand, this takes about 5.5 quarts of oil. It's a 6-cylinder, so I'm going to check the dipstick in a little bit here to see how it registers. Probably have to go back and get another quart of oil, which is fine because I got to go back anyways to drop off the oil, the used oil. Speaking of used oil, something I want to mention here I just noticed is this is Castrol. I guess it was formerly Syntec. I don't think Syntec's a brand. I think it's just a type of castor oil. But Castrol is owned by BP USA and based out of New Jersey. And I'm all for American brands. Buy in America, except for when it comes to my truck, because it's a Toyota. Yeah, we're full of contradictions, America. So, but one thing I do not like is British Petroleum Motor Oil, or Oil Company, or BP, because they're the ones that spilled millions of gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico and killed oil workers when the oil tanker blew up in the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico. So don't buy BP. I'm not going to be using Castrol anymore. I'm going to try to find another brand that is more responsible company. Alright, so as far as PR is concerned, or political action, my public service message is over, and I'm just going to check the oil in a minute. There's the oil dipstick, and I'm going to wait a little bit before I do that though, so the oil can kind of settle in the engine. And I'm also going to need to reset the service engine light on the car. I will tell you how to do that in a second. Alright you guys, so according to 2 Car Pros on YouTube, they say to start the engine and let it run for 15 seconds to get the oil all over inside the engine. You can see my maintenance required light is still on, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that according to 2carpros.com and their YouTube video. So just letting that run, and then I'm going to check my oil with the dipstick. According to 2 Car Pros, it's also 5 quarts, not 5.5 quarts like I've been saying. Alright, so I'll let the engine run. I'm going to go ahead and check my oil on the dipstick. You know how to do this. Pull the oil dipstick out, wipe it off, put it back in, and pull it back out again, and check your level. Alright, so I checked my oil dipstick, and it actually looked fine with 4.5 quarts oil, so basically 1 whole jug of oil. Now I'm going to reset the service light, maintenance required light. There's a little knob here, you can't really see it because it's dark, but basically you're going to push this in and hold it while you turn the car on, and then your odometer will you can go through different screens, I guess. It's an odometer, but it'll go to the trip, and then it'll tell you what to do after that. So let's see what happens. Okay, so basically what I did is I pushed and held this button while I turned the key to the on position. I didn't turn the car on, I just turned the key to the on position, and the odometer reading came out, and then a little line dash popped up, and it kind of counted down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All the dashes were gone, and then the maintenance light, maintenance required light, turned off. So everything should be good. And you see, no more maintenance required lights. Just my seatbelt light and my door. Once I put my seatbelt on, I will be all good. So maintenance required light is now off for another 3,000 miles. I have 129,657 miles, 129,657,000 miles on this truck. Since I'm using synthetic oil, I don't have to change it after 3,000 miles. It's a little more expensive oil. It'll last longer. You can Google it and determine for yourself if you want to change your oil every 3,000 or if you want to wait for every 5,000. I recommend looking that up, and if I get a chance, I'll do that, and I'll leave it in the description. On my recommendations. So I'm also going to post a link to the Two Car Pros website or YouTube video, and you can see their version of how to change oil. They drain the oil first, and then they replace the filter. You could do it that way, but I preferred my way, changing the filter first. All right.